Surprisingly, this little black girl Catherine was able to solve even the most challenging math problems when she was just 10 years old, and in primary school, she was regularly called to do so in class. Though she shows exceptional potential, her parents were very poor and would not be able to get her the best education. Unexpectedly, the principal of the school she attended called her parents to let them know she had won a scholarship to enter junior high school's second grade right away. This was not just any school, she was accepted to the top junior high school for black students. However, great challenges lie ahead, as this was in 1926, and racism was still pervasive in America. All public spaces, including restrooms, hospitals, schools, and even basins for washing hands, were segregated based on the color of their skin. Catherine's teachers and principal were very proud of her brilliance. They thought she would grow up to be a fine person, one who would lead by example and demonstrate that black people are important and are entitled to equal rights and facilities. Catherine is now a grown-up, 35 years later, on an afternoon, when she and two of her friends, Dorothy and Mary, both accountants working for the United States Space Agency NASA, were trying to fix her broken-down car, a police cruiser pulled up onto the scene. Back then, it was exceedingly improbable and prohibited for black individuals to stop on the road. If found casually stopping, black people would be arrested. Mary then told the police that the three of them worked for NASA and that they were in danger of being late, and if they weren't there on time, the rocket could fail to launch. The police were subsequently willing to assist them after hearing this explanation. At the same time, government employees were observed watching the news about Russia's impending rocket launch. While visiting the NASA facility, the president's emissary became enraged by this information. They ordered NASA boss Harrison to create a rocket as soon as possible to rival Russia's. They distributed assignments and then went right to work. When they got to the office, Catherine was abruptly directed to transfer to the Space Research Division by her boss Michelle. During Catherine's transfer to the Space Research section, she was given a trash bin to take out, as they assumed she was the cleaning service. When she met Harrison, he asked Catherine right away if she could solve the rocket launch coordinate data formula. She confidently responded that she would be able to in a matter of hours. Observing that assurance, when Catherine suddenly felt the need to urinate while working, she knew that part of the building didn't have any black toilets. She had to sprint the 800 meters to the former division building. When she then returned to her work, she would often be met with scornful glances from everyone. While utilizing her job in the new division, Catherine was put to the test when she was tasked to check Paul's, another accounting staff member, report was accurate. After work at home, Catherine struggles because her husband and father passed away, leaving her as the only provider for the household. She is still responsible for taking care of her 3 children. Fortunately, she still lives with her mother, who assists her daily in caring for her kids. Following Sunday morning worship, Catherine was matched by Dorothy and Mary with Jim, a soldier. Despite Catherine's protests, between the two conversations, she was left alone with Jim. As Jim took her for a stroll, he stated that he did not anticipate NASA hiring any black female personnel. Catherine was offended. Jim restrained his emotions after realizing Catherine felt hurt by his statement. She responded that she was the first black student to get a scholarship to the greatest white university in Virginia, which was the reason NASA selected her. Jim then stops talking. In his heart, he imagines just how intelligent she is. When Catherine wanted coffee the following day at work, she controlled her emotions and slowly returned to work after spotting a little coffee pot marked particularly for blacks. Catherine felt like no matter how good she was, she would never be seen as equal, because she is black. Soon after, she looked over the file and Paul arrived to deliver the formula. On the paper there were multiple scribbles which puzzled her, making it appear as though Paul was purposefully trying to intimidate her so that she couldn't complete the formula, but she remained mentally strong. She used the light from the lamp to read the scribbles. It turns out that the data in the file is the same as the data on the chalkboard. She decided to continue working right on the chalkboard. She then went on the 800 meters walk to the bathroom. Harrison and the research team, including Paul, were perplexed by Catherine's count. They had been working hard to finalize the formula up until that point, but she was able to do it all by herself in a matter of minutes. Several employees were questioning Catherine on how that was possible. Even after Paul had crossed off a lot of information, she still manages to do it. Paul questioned how the formula could still be solved on the board because it's not obvious. She then went into detail about how she did it. After hearing that, Harrison chastised Paul and instructed him that going forward he must offer as much information as possible to Catherine in order to finish the assignment as soon as possible. Throughout their time of relaxation, when Michelle saw them, she approached them and inquired as to whether Mary really did desire the promotion to rocket assembly technician. Additionally, she claimed that since Mary is not a white university graduate and has not met one of the key conditions, her application must be rejected. In those days, if you didn't earn a degree from a white university, It doesn't matter how advanced your knowledge is, you could never work for NASA as a technician. Despite this, Mary remained hopeful of achieving her goal. A few days later, Dorothy was observed bringing her kids to the public library, where she was admonished by a white woman while she was selecting a book. She was chased away by the woman, who claims that black people do not belong in this library. After boarding the bus, she removed a book that she had stealthily removed from the library. She told her kids that they need to be smart when they grow up if they want to be respected. That evening, Catherine and Jim met during a party hosted by Dorothy. At that moment, Jim tried to make amends for his remarks made during their first meeting. He extends his apology by inviting Catherine to a passionate dance. She was moved by Jim's genuineness, but in the middle of the dance, she heard on the radio that Russia had launched a rocket that has successfully explored a planet completing one full circle. The environment went silent for a split second. Early the next morning, Harrison made the announcement at the office, saying that everyone will have to work extra hard from this point forward for the rocket they have created to successfully launch into space on schedule. However, despite everyone working non-stop overtime for days, rocket testing continues to be unsuccessful. The following day, NASA purchased a high-tech device to automatically calculate the coordinates of a point formula, but sadly, there was not a single NASA employee who could use the device, at night when nobody was aware of its existence. Dorothy sneaks into the engine room and spends the entire night observing how the device operates. The following day, she highlighted how this new engine would threaten to replace black accountants' jobs. Mary, meantime, went to the court to request admission to one of the universities attended by whites only. She hurried back to the workplace after receiving the trial schedule and informed her supervisor that she wouldn't give up and would do everything in her power to get accepted into a white man's university so she could study to be a rocket engineer. Meanwhile, Harrison was angry and questioned Catherine's frequent absences during working hours. Even though it was not yet time for a break, she always leaves for the toilet. Seeing Catherine's sodden state, with tears in her eyes, she let out the rage that she had been suppressing for so long and vent as to why she had to leave work for 40 minutes each day. She explained that she devoted 40 minutes to using the restroom. Because there were no restrooms for black people in this building, she had to go 800 meters each day in high heels to the old division building. It was even forbidden for black people to ride bicycles. She highlighted the black coffee pot that Harrison was unaware of. Regardless of how intelligent or skilled she is at her job, people will still be horrified by her black complexion. After hearing the heartfelt rant, the room fell silent as she let all her emotions out before asking permission to use the restroom.
Where the hell have you been? Everywhere I look, you're not where I need you to be. It's not my imagination. Now, where the hell do you go every day?
To the bathroom, sir.
To the bathroom. Damn bathroom. For 40 minutes a day? What are you doing there? We're T-minus zero here. I put a lot of faith in you.
There's no bathroom for me here.
What do you mean there's no bathroom for you here?
There is no bathroom. There are colored bathrooms in this building, or any building outside the West Campus, which is half a mile away. Did you know that? I have to walk to Timbuktu just to relieve myself. And I can't use one of the handy bikes. Picture that, Mr. Harrison. My uniform. Skirt below my knees, my heels, and a simple string of pearls. Well, I don't own pearls. Lord knows you don't pay colors enough to afford pearls. And I work like a dog, day and night, living off of coffee from a pot none of you want to touch.
The following day, there was a big disturbance inside the complex as Harrison destroyed all the black signage that was posted throughout the toilets and NASA facilities. Before departing, Harrison said there won't be any more white or black toilets because at NASA, all our urine is the same color. All the white and black people stand and looked astonished at Harrison's courage to make such a brave decision. The trial period was now over, and on May 5, 1961, it was time for the United States' first official rocket launch. Americans celebrated the achievement, and the NASA rocket creators were given an award by President John F. Kennedy. However, in his speech, President Kennedy stated that America would continue to explore space in order to compete with Russia. Catherine and Jim's relationship grew stronger each day. Meanwhile, Mary was attempting to persuade the judge in court that she applied to a university attended by white men in order to become the first female engineer at NASA. Maybe now Mary had not accomplished anything, but she was sure in the next few years her name would be immortalized as one of the greatest women in the world, and that's when the judge's name would also be recorded, as the first judge to give black people the opportunity to study at white people's universities. Her way of negotiating impresses the judge, thereby facilitating the verdict in her favor. In the office, Catherine asked for permission to work on the calculation formula for the project's next rocket launch. Although Paul was against her, judging from the results of previous work, Harrison decided to trust Catherine. After 47 days in space, the astronaut who piloted the NASA rocket down to Earth perished tragically as a result of the rocket mislanding, which caused it to be destroyed and sunk into the water. The destroyed rocket was paid for by taxpayers' money from the public funds. This left the government officials feeling let down once more. They demanded Harrison to make the next rocket manufacturer perfect. Paul denied Catherine's calculated information on the day, claiming that the data had been altered this morning. So, utilizing the updated information in her head, she had to recalculate. While in a meeting with government officials and Harrison, they needed precise numbers for the next launch since they were all lost for words. Catherine had to perform the improvised counts in front of everyone. She determined the precise miles per hour and determined that point 0 would be 60 degrees west in square miles. Everyone was in awe of her abilities, because the formula was so complex and hasn't been solved yet. However, she therefore nonchalantly completed it in a few minutes. According to Harrison, the data would be finished in a few days. On the other hand, Dorothy had been surreptitiously attempting to use the NASA automatic calculating device after spending a lot of time learning how it functions. Two officers entered the office abruptly and were perplexed as to how the engine functioned because none of the staff could get it to run. It turned out that yesterday's officer had informed her superiors that it was Dorothy. Her boss now wanted her to operate the NASA calculator and fire all the other black accountants. Dorothy responded that she would accept the position only if all the other black accountants were permitted to work there with her. Meanwhile, Mary was bewildered on her first day of college as she was asked when she attended a lecture why she was in the class. She went on to say that since this campus has a license, she was enrolled here legally. They were surprised to have a black lady in the white men's class. That evening when Catherine gets home from work, she is surprised to see everyone in the house dressed nicely and a special meal prepared for her as she was still digesting things. She cries with excitement and responds that she was ready when Jim came out and kneeled to propose. The next day at work, Harrison told Catherine that the NASA automatic calculator would be running soon, so, going forward, her arithmetic abilities would not be needed by the Space Research Division. She was left with no choice but to go back to her previous division and work with the other black accountants. Prior to leaving, she received a pearl necklace from Harrison's secretary, which was purchased by the entire research division staff as a show of appreciation. Several days later, after going back to her previous division, the wedding party for Catherine took place. In February 1962, the second rocket launched were conducted by the United States. This time, unlike Russia's mission, the American mission is not only traveling through space but also moving around in orbit. Harrison inquired to Paul as to why the machine count figures from today and yesterday were different, but he was unable to respond. He then got in touch with the astronauts to inform them of the data anomaly. The astronaut instructed him to phone Catherine as soon as they heard the news. The astronaut trusted Catherine because he had seen firsthand how she calculated. If following another calculation, she declared the coordinates were true, he would continue the trip. If not, he would abandon it. He then commanded a member of his staff to swiftly locate Catherine as he ran in the direction of the division building. The exhaustion that Catherine experienced while running the 800 meters every day just to go to the toilet was ultimately felt by him. When Catherine returned, Harrison's team handed up the coordinates right away and begged Catherine to do the calculations as quickly as possible before the clock ran out. She took off for the operator station right away. For the first time in her life, Harrison abruptly told her to enter when she was about to leave. She was able to discern for herself how things were going. When the rocket arrives, astronauts are already en route to it. At the NASA control room, they informed the astronauts that their mission could proceed from Cape Canaveral since the coordinates had been correctly calculated. In the Black Clerk's building, everything appears to be in order. As Dorothy prepared to return home, Michelle came to offer her a formal appointment letter as the head of the calculating machine section. She no longer needed to be Michelle's subordinate because of respect. Michelle addresses Dorothy as Mrs., using her first name. The mission to explore the orbit was successful. However, after a few hours, the rocket must instantly land or it could fall. As the caution light came on, as the rocket touched down, the Earth's atmosphere's heat barrier layer developed issues. However, the astronauts managed to land safely on Earth and the rocket remained intact, with no major damage, and the landing was exactly at the coordinates that Catherine had calculated. This scenario was also broadcast on television and radio. Hearing the happy news, all Americans cheered while others celebrated their success. Harrison walked over to Catherine to say a good job before leaving while he jokingly asked, "Can we fly to the moon?" She confidently answered,
Already there.
This concludes this recap from the movie Hidden Figures. Please subscribe for more like this and hit the like to help the channel.